Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Joe at Jonose Cigars. Hope you had a great April. I know I definitely did. And now May is dawning, and we're getting into a new brand spotlight. As always, the voting has been overwhelming for one particular choice, and that was Joya de Nicaragua. So that is going to be the brand that we feature for the month of May. A really neat, historic brand. I don't know if a lot of you know about this, but Joya de Nicaragua, established technically in 1968, was one of the first, if not the first, factories to actually produce Nicaraguan cigars. So for all of us who, myself included, who love Nicaraguan tobacco and what they have to offer, we owe a lot to the pioneering of the company Joya de Nicaragua. Like I said, it technically was founded in 1968, although it wasn't operating as Joya de Nicaragua at that point. At that point, I believe it was called Tabacos Puros de Nicaragua. But now, after a lot of military unrest that sort of plagued the Central American region for a long time during the 70s and 80s, in the mid-90s, it was finally sort of rebuilt and reproduced cigars in a big way. And under that same ownership right now, since the mid-90s, it is being operated and producing some incredible cigars, including the one I'm doing today, which is the Joya Cabinetta, which is a milder smoke. It's going to be a Nicaraguan Puro almost. It's got this two-toned wrapper leaf. It's got this Ecuadorian Connecticut shade-grown wrapper towards that bottom two-thirds or so of the stick, and then and toward the top of that cigar, it's going to be a Nicaraguan Habano Criollo wrapper. So two different types of wrapper leaf on this particular cigar. So this is a standard Toro 6x52 ring gauge. Very beautiful cigar, very, very tight seams, very evenly and semi-firmly packed. Very minimal veins, extremely smooth in that bottom two-thirds, and a little more of a slightly sandpapery feel on that top part of the cigar where you got the darker wrapper, the Criollo wrapper there. Very neat and tidy double cap. Pre-light aroma is a very sweet, sort of grassy and raisin, light roast coffee sort of aroma. Wow. A very pronounced sweet dried fruit coming off of the foot. That pretty rich raisin sort of coming off the foot. This looks delicious. I can't wait to try this one. Let's go ahead and get it cut, toasted, see what we can find out. First few puffs, perfect resistance, really good smoke output. Wind's kind of blowing a little bit more than I would like it to, so you can hardly see a lot of the smoke that's coming out, but I'm getting a pretty good amount. It's got a nice, creamy, sort of silky nuttiness coming through at this point. It looks like a cashew and almond mixture. Kind of a nice flavor there. Kind of a mild to medium in body. Strength of the flavors is pretty mellow at this point too. Tiny hints of pepper on the finish, but not a whole lot. Alright, let this one get a little warm. Catch up with you as I get into the first third. I will see you then. About 10 minutes into the first third. A semi-slanted sort of burn. It's not warranting a touch-up just yet. I'll just have to keep an eye on it. Draw and smoke output are still exactly right where I want it to be. It's a very nice, relaxed draw without too much resistance, but just enough so you know that there's some tobacco in between you and the cherry of the cigar. Flavors are really not that much changed. There's still that kind of a sweeter cashew nut, creamy, little bit of almond, hints of cedar, but it's not really pronounced. More of that nutty, sweet cashew and almond and kind of a natural tobacco sweetness coming through. It is a very mellow cigar. The body is very, very creamy, but kind of on the mild side, which I don't mind, particularly in the middle of the day. The traditional cigar pairing for something like this would be black coffee or espresso or a latte. I went with kind of a Caribbean rum instead because I've already had enough coffee today. It's in the middle of the afternoon, and actually the rum is not a bad replacement. It actually pairs really well That vanilla oakiness that comes from these rums pairs pretty nicely with the sweet nuttiness, sweet natural tobacco. So far, not a whole lot else to report. The aroma is kind of a nice, sweet vanilla oak sort of aroma. Very nice. And I'll just go ahead and let this go until we get into the second third. We'll see you then. "35 minutes into the second third. As you can see, that burn, that slanted of the burn kind of corrected itself very nicely. We had a fairly solid ash, even though it was a little bit of flaky, so burning pretty good. Construction, pretty nice so far. Flavors, just a really nicely balanced sweet cashew and almond, with just a little bit of sort of an oaky and cedary sort of woodiness coming through. The retrohale, you get a nice sort of chili pepper zing coming through when you first retrohale, but then it fades very quickly, and then you just that nuttiness intensifies after the retrohale. Really like the balance of the flavors in here. The creamy nuttiness that's coming through is just really lovely. Pairs great with this rum, by the way, and just a really pleasant, mellow, creamy smoke. I mean, I'm kind of a sucker for these middle of the day, early morning sort of cigars that just have this very gentle, nicely balanced, creamy sort of character, and this one is one of the better ones I've had in a while. Never had a Joya de Cabinetta before, so this is a nice first experience. I'll catch up with you as I get into the final third, unless something important happens before then. I will see you then. Alright, about an hour and a half in. There's a lot to unload in this segment, so I'll try to do it as efficiently as possible. Smoke output actually intensified as you got into that midway point of the stick. So a little bit after I finished that last segment, right as I got into the very middle of the stick, the smoke output definitely picked up. Now, before that happened, the cigar actually went out on me, so I had to do a quick relight on it. It was a pretty easy relight, not a big deal. And the burn has been doing just fine. There were some moments where it wasn't really razor sharp. They had a lot of valleys in it, but it was never super problematic, and besides that relight, the construction and combustion of this cigar has been very good. The ash is fairly strong. It is a little bit flaky, so not a perfect ash, but it is just fine. It's been falling off in nice, even 1.5 inch chunks each time, so not a lot to complain with as far as the ash. The flavors haven't really changed a whole lot. There's still this nice creamy cashew and almond with a lot of natural tobacco sweetness and some cashew and almond sweetness in there. Very nice. The aroma has actually, as it got closer and closer to that final third where the wrappers transition from that Connecticut, or from the Ecuadorian shade wrapper to the Nicaraguan, the darker wrapper, the Criollo wrapper, it started to take on more of a roasted, honey roasted peanut sort of aroma, and then the flavor started to follow suit as soon as you got into that transition part. The retrohale's pepper zing has intensified a little bit now into the final third, but it's still not horrible. As far as the zing, it's there when you first blow out, and as soon as the smoke clears, it really starts to fade quite a bit, so a pretty nice retrohale. After you retrohale, the wood notes definitely intensify more now, and it's more of a cedar sort of woodiness coming through. It was really interesting noting the flavors. As soon as you got into that transition period, you had this immediate peak of sort of a roasted, honey roasted peanut coming through that really intensified. And then it started to fade back into a sweet almond. Really interesting. The way the cigar was wrapped, you can tell by the seams that they wrapped the Criollo wrapper on that final third over the shade grown wrapper. And there was a few parts, well, a little bit of the part, obviously there are going to be a little bit of both wrappers involved, because you have a little bit of that shade wrapper underneath the Criollo wrapper. So as soon as you got past that, that's when it seemed to go back to the almond. Weirdly enough, it's an interesting transition, and I was really interested to see how it went. The aromas are really pleasant. There are also little hints of very fertile earth coming through in the aroma and in the flavors too. And so it's been an interesting layer of flavors coming through as we get into this final third. Smoke temperature is getting a little bit warm. It's not terrible, and it's definitely still smokable, so I'll probably still smoke this down to the nub. Time to give this a moment of truth and a score. I love the smoke texture. It was right where a mild to medium sort of cigar should be. A great morning coffee sort of cigar, or middle of the day cigar like I'm having right now. Smoke texture was very nice. The aromas were fairly simple and fairly consistent from start to finish. Not a whole lot of transitions with the aroma except when it got into the final third. And the flavor transitions not super layered, but interesting enough. And all the flavors were very nice. Retrohead was nice. And the burn for the most part has been pretty good. Love the draw, love the smoke output. Alright, all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and give the Joya de Nicaragua Cabinetta, Joya Cabinetta, 4 puffs on the Jonose Cigar scale. A pretty good morning cigar. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but it's definitely one that I'll probably smoke again. And very decently priced. You can get these for under $8 a cigar. Can't argue with that. And really do love the fact that Joya de Nicaragua did so much to pioneer Nicaraguan tobacco. Because I'm a lover of Nicaraguan tobaccos in particular, and this one is a pretty good example of good craftsmanship when it comes to Nicaraguan tobaccos. Joya de Nicaragua does grow their own tobacco and harvests it, ages it, ferments it, so on and so forth. So there's only a few cigar companies that actually do that. A lot of them will have their tobacco farmed elsewhere and then they just make the cigars, but they do everything at Joya de Nicaragua, so kudos to them. Thanks so much for joining me for the first of the May cigar reviews for the Jonose Cigar channel. As always, make sure you click the like button if you like this video and subscribe to my channel. Make sure you click the bell icon to get notifications, of course. And until next time, everybody, smoke a good one. Hey, thanks for watching Jonose Cigars. If you like this cigar video and all things cigars in general, you might want to click on this head right here to subscribe to my channel and get notifications every time I release a new review or any other video for that matter. And if you like this video, probably like this one that YouTube randomly picked out for you. Yeah, check that one out.